So fellas, it is this time of a day again where we're gonna cover some knowledge in World of Warships, and welcome to YouTube, welcome to Twitch. Today we're gonna talk about armor. How does armor work? How does overmatch work? I have a little video where I demonstrate overmatch in training room battle, but here I thought we're actually gonna do it a bit differently. I'm gonna showcase you what are all these armor values mean, what armor does, how does it work again, how does it works against HC, SAP, and AP, and so on. And I took the Monty here as an example, and I also have a nice spreadsheet for you. Good. Actually, I'm gonna show you the spreadsheet first. You can find this in the Wargaming wiki, which can actually teach you a lot of things. And first, we're gonna go about the overmatch. So, fellas, I'm gonna go a bit closer, making it a bit bigger. There we go. How does overmatch work? Basically, the game has a rule that if an AP shell is 14.3 times the thickness of an armor plate, it will overmatch. For example, I give you an example here. Let's say you have 10 millimeters of armor. If your AP shell is 144 millimeters or bigger, you will be able to overmatch it. Close the curtain a bit. That means basically what overmatch does is your AP doesn't care about angling. It legit doesn't care about the angle. It just pens and goes straight into the armor. So you cannot bounce that in that way, and that's what overmatch is about. This is why you have these scenarios where you're playing, for example, a low tier cruiser or a high tier cruiser. Let's say you play a Des Moines. I always take Des Moines as an example because it suffers from overmatch a lot. Des Moines is covered with 27mm nose armor, 30 deck armor, and 30 middle armor, and in the back it's also 27. What does that mean? We're gonna take it as a spreadsheet here, an example. The Des Moines nose is 27mm. That means you need at least 387mm guns to overmatch it. We don't have 387mm guns in the game. We have mostly 380s and 381s. So if you're in a Des Moines and there is, for example, a Roma shooting you or a Bismarck, as long as you're angled, they will not be able to penetrate the armor at all with AP. They will ricochet, at least until you show broadside, and then they can pen it. But as long as you're angled, Bismarcks, Romas, and everything below it will pretty much ricochet on this armor plating. Now, if we take a Montana, for example, which has 406mm guns, which are bigger than this threshold, a Montana player would need to damage the Des Moines, shoot into the nose when it's angled, or on the superstructure, although the nose will give you way more damage because you get full pens and maybe even citadels. So you would if you're in a Monty, you want to shoot the nose of the Des Moines if he's directly in front of you. You do not want to shoot the side plating because that's 30. Like, this is where it starts to get a bit more tricky, that you aim for certain spots on certain ships in certain scenarios. And I'm gonna also show that in port later with Yamato as an example. So a Bismarck, a Roma cannot damage a Des Moines from the front. It cannot like pen it, the bow. But the Monty can. However, a Monty cannot damage the side plating because that's 30. And for 30mm of armor, you would need 430mm or more. Which, for example, only all the 457 BBs, Yamato, and so on, and Republic has. The thing is, as an example with the Des Moines, it basically would mean, and we're gonna put paint up for that in a second, we're gonna draw a bit as well. So ideally, you are a Des Moines player like this. That's your Des Moines. Here is, what you wanna do is, if there's a Monty turret shooting you, you wanna bait him into shooting into this area. Because here, he can't overmatch you. And he will ricochet. You want to present your broadside, kind of. And in the moment the shell's reaching you, you want to angle in. So the Monty hits you here, and it ricochets. If the Montana player hits you here, you explode. Like, it does damage. If the Montana player hits you here, which he really can't from this side here, you get damaged quite crazily. So the Monty wants to hit you here and here. But you need to make him bait into the side
B2
plating.
Mamba just resubbed for 20 months.
And
Good
now,
morning, Buddy 07.
now the problem starts to rise when we look back at the chart. 431mm guns can overmatch 30mm. And this is where BB overmatch gets brutal. And this is why people hate it. Republic has 331. And all the other ones you can see here as an example have above it. All these BBs, what you see here. So basically every BB that has greater gun caliber than 403mm will not care about this middle part as well. The Moine has a very small citadel built outside, but that's basically covering only little portion of the ship. So when you have a Republic player, here, let's say here, he's shooting you from here, he can annihilate everything here. He doesn't care about it. He just remotely needs to aim at your middle ship and hit you, and you get massive amount of pen damage on you. He can still try to aim more for the nose to maybe get a citadel, but if he just wants consistent damage and lands as much shells as he can, he just pretty much aims center mesh and your Des Moines is gonna get completely smashed. You cannot angle against this. It's not possible. You kind of rather need to dodge, or if you're extremely lucky, get it on your citadel belt while you angle, because your citadel belt is 152mm. That means if it's angled, it can't be penetrated by any armor. So that's the thing that's really been hated about overmatch, and that's how it works. And if we now go back to port, I'll show you something at the Montana. For those of you who don't know it, Yamato and all the ships that have over 460mm, like the big overmatch monsters, they tend to overmatch 32mm of armor, which is the base plating of every high tier battleship. It doesn't matter if you have an icebreaker or not, we'll go into that in detail as well. But basically, when you have a Yamato player fighting you in an angled Monty as an example, he has two options. He can try to hit your nose, or he can go for your superstructure. I tend to, depending on the range, you want to go for the nose because the reward can be bigger. But the further you away, the more it makes sense to possibly go for the superstructure because it's going to be more consistent then. Superstructure is guaranteed damage because you can see it can be overmatched. And also the frontal plate is guaranteed damage because it gets overmatched. Monty has 38mm deck armor and side plating, meaning if you're in a position like this and the shells come in and they hit you here, they ricochet. Keep in mind, in this game, plunging fire does not exist. It just doesn't. It might look like it if you're firing at 25 km and your shells go straight down like this, but it doesn't work like this. Plunging fire doesn't exist in World of Warships, and every time you hit the deck, you hit the deck armor with your shells, it's gonna be an auto bounce with a Yamato. It's just gonna ricochet, no matter of the distance. So keep that in mind. There is no plunging fire in this game. What else is to say? If you hit the turrets, obviously you're also gonna ricochet. So you wanna ideally you wanna shoot in the Yamato exactly here, because if we take this away now, you not only penetrate this armor here, but you instantly go into a citadel as well. This is, for example, why when you're in the nose-in fights, depending on the scenario, you want to aim rather here than here, because if you aim here, you could overpen in the back, it comes out here again, or you just do pen damage because it doesn't reach the citadel. Because each shell has also an individual an arming time, that's called the fuse time, and the fuse time pretty much depends with how far the shell can travel in the armor before it explodes. The basic fuse time, I think, in the game is 0.033 seconds. Some ships have shorter fuse. That means they're fusing faster when they enter the first armor threshold. So, that's how the overmatch part works pretty much. Ideally, of course, you look for broadsides, because, you know, when you're flat, you get your full pen damage, and you don't care about these values because you just go for this straight for the citadel. But that's all regarding when it comes to angle platings. And this is you can use across all boards of the game. Like, for example, we go to tier 7 now. Let's look at another BB. We look at Nagato. Nagato is, for example, covered in 26. What does 26 mean? We're looking at our chart again. As long as you have 26 millimeters armor, the guns need to be bigger than 372 millimeters to pen you. So, to overmatch you. That means, for example, New Mexico's and all the 357 millimeter guns cannot damage a Nagato from the front because they will ricochet. So keep that in mind. I put this chart under this chart which with the different thresholds under this YouTube video as well, so you have an idea when it comes to the armor. Now, when it comes to angling, and now we're gonna go back to a high TBB again. We're just gonna take a look at Kremlin. When it comes to angling, there's also a few things you need to take into calculation. The more you angle, the stronger your armor gets. Unless it's overmatchable, then it doesn't really care like how your angle is again, because it overmatches anyway. But in theory, the better the angle, the stronger your armor. Ships have, and you can look that up also on the wiki, ships have different pen angles. Guys, what is the basic AP pen angle? I don't know the basic. I think is it 45 degrees or is it 60 degrees? I'm actually not sure what degrees it is right now. But basically, all ships have a basic angle. They don't auto-ricochet. So, it means, for example, at this angle, they will auto-ricochet the APs because, okay, you obviously you can't overmatch 430 millimeters of armor. And your shell will just auto-ricochet at this angle. There's ships that have improved AP angles. That means you can be more angled and still get pen damage. For those of you who know the the cruiser Des Moines, they know it tends to citadel other cruisers at more ridiculous angles, or the Petropavlos, because their AP angles can ricochet at higher degrees only. That means you can be more angled, but you will still be able to, you can shoot more angle targets, but you will still be able to ricochet them, not ricochet them, to pen them, because your auto bounce angle is better. And then we also have Sept, with the Colombo line, for example, or Venezia and so on. And Sept is pretty much the ultimate ammo when it comes to angles. It has even more ridiculous angles. That means, for example, let's say you are in the CBA like this, like nearly fully angled, like 80 degrees or whatever it is. The Sept lands in your superstructure and it will still do full pen damage because it can pen at these ridiculous angles. So keep that in mind. Now, looking at HE, it works. Sept and HE have one little thing in common. Before I switch to HE, Sept has always a fixed pen value. Now, HE doesn't care about angling. HE is an ammo that doesn't have these values. HE will pen when it has the pen. Sounds funny, but if we look at, for example, at these guns here, we're looking at the ammo choice, high explosive shells, 76 millimeters of pen. What does it mean? We're just gonna look at the same ship as well now. See, Kremlin's HE pen is 76 millimeters. That means you're gonna pen everything here. You're gonna pen here. You're not gonna pen here. You're not gonna pen here. You're gonna pen here, and you're gonna pen here. Pretty much, you're doing a lot of pen damage across all the ship. Keep in mind, HE explodes on contact with the first armor plate. That means if the armor plate is not a citadel, you cannot citadel it. Plus, HE has usually low enough pen to not citadel. There's some exceptions, like Conqueror again, that has quarter pen. That means usually it's like this. Your caliber divided by 6 is your HE pen. British ships and German ships have an exception. They have a quarter pen. That means your caliber divided by like the quarter of your caliber is pretty much the HE pen. Saying, yeah, let's say you have 400 millimeter guns, which are not exactly existing in the game. It's just an example now. You have a 100mm pen on German and on British ships, or on a few lines of them. You don't have that on the other ones. As you can see, Kremlin has 457mm guns. but the HE pen is only 76, which is more than enough to pretty much slap anybody anyway. But just keeping you in mind, the Germans and the British in that regard have better overall HE pen. Now, one last thing I want to go before we stop the armor topic here, and I gave you a basic overview on how it works. Some ships, and this is where you need to learn, where you should check the enemies if you don't know how to pen them. You should check them out in port. Some ships have icebreakers. Usually speaking, every battleship on a certain tier has always the same plating. For example, all tier 10 BBs with some rare exceptions, which I'm not gonna go into, but basically 99% of the BBs on tier 10 have 32mm frontal armor. Always. Same as all the heavy cruisers have 27 and all the light cruisers 25 and so on. That's a fixed threshold that is always applied on the ships. This is sometimes smaller or bigger on certain ships. For example, even the GK that's heavily armored will always have 32 in the front. However, they tend to have icebreakers. I'm now taking Kremlin as an example. Icebreakers are pretty much increased armor plates that are more on the bottom of the bow. You also have them on the back on the ships. Maybe not that big, but they're also here and they're not gonna cover the entire area. What this means is, if you're, for example, again in a Yamato, which can overmatch 32mm, and you're fighting a angled Kremlin, you gotta be aware you need to aim higher. If you aim waterline and your shells land here, they ricochet, because obviously you can't overmatch this if he's angled. You wanna aim for the upper nose here, because the icebreaker will prevent you from doing any damage to him. So you have to hit this part and not this part. And this is where I can just give you the tip again. Look at individual armor layouts if you struggle to pen some enemies, because there's a fair few ships who have these icebreakers. And also, if you wanna like look at the different thresholds and examples of ships, I'm gonna put you this little chart here from the from the Wargaming wiki under the video, so go check that out. And this is basically a little overview how armor works, how overmatch works, how general penetration works, and so on. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching. That was a little armor guide. See you next time, your channelers, and out.